Good afternoon, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Wanting to get on today and see if anybody's got anything they need some help with, some discerning that needs to be done. And so the conversation here is going to be like all over the board. I'm hoping anyway. Hoping people will join me here and discuss what issues they're having, what issues they've overcome, their experiences, knowledge, things like that, and what I can help with. So please feel free to make comments as I'm speaking here. Because like I said, it's going to be a broad spectrum of issues when we talk about corruption. It exists in all different aspects of life. And it's quite profound how it affects everybody, particularly in this day and age where we see this COVID-19 coronavirus that everybody's worried about like it's some new thing and it's terrible. Let me help you comprehend things, people. The coronavirus was first recognized, though it was quite well existent prior to 1960s. In that coronavirus recognition and man's inherent will to, quote, control things, they decided to create a vaccine. And if people know the thing about vaccines, we have vaccines for all different kinds of things, and they're still prevalent today. Is it really doing anything? Is it really doing what they say it's doing? Likely not. In fact, we have a lot of different things throughout the history of time that they profess to have resolved, and yet not only did they profess to resolve them, but they have samples of them in the university so they can bring them out and reinstitute them among the population. This is the reason for their genetics and modifications and all that. So, and that's just one subject. You know, tonight I'm going to be doing a Zoom. I've been doing Zoom meetings on Mondays and Thursdays. And tonight's Zoom meeting, we're going to go back to the birth certificate and discuss that a little bit. Matter of fact, I'm not going to make this too long of a video. I got to get on and do some research on the Bork engine and do some more research, current research on the birth certificate in its different forms in the different nations, what a birth certificate actually was in regards to shipping, transportation, your freedom of movement. And the birth certificate is the prevention of a gospel. When people succumb to the idea of a birth certificate and that it has any kind of control over you, it's because you don't recognize what it is for what it is. It's just a financial instrument of conversion. And if you comprehend the various different conversions that it works on, then you can create your own remedy, which is in fact what you're supposed to do. The system's not going to provide a remedy for you. They have certain penalties for things that are done against the rules of conduct, but the rules of conduct, in all fairness, are already set out. And so if you set yourself into a jurisdiction, subjecting yourself therefore to it, then you have to be aware of the rules of conduct so that if you do make a mistake, you have the ability to create your own remedy. Because even in those jurisdictions, the remedy is already there if you follow the rules of conduct. If you don't follow the rules of conduct, you have to be able to create your own remedy. And the only way you're going to be able to create your own remedy is by bringing things back into your jurisdiction. Hey, wait a minute, I made a mistake. If that's the way it is, then I did not intend that. Ab initio, my mistake. Forgive me as I forgive those who are indebted to me. Because initially, you are indebted to myself for being able to convert things into this kind of a jurisdiction. And again, if you don't realize what your own jurisdiction is and the power you have, then you're not going to be able to create your own remedy. Adam Dingle says, what about rewriting the Declaration of Independence? What is what is, and that's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What is done is what ought to be done. And if you want to recognize the Declaration of Independence, I highly suggest you do so. Same with the Constitution, same with the Articles of Confederation, same with the Law of Nations, but do so in the right jurisdiction, and that is in the jurisdiction from which it extends. The Declaration of Independence extends from the Bible, the biblical teachings. The Constitution extends from the biblical teachings. The Law of Nation extends from the biblical teachings. And even the Uniform Commercial Code, as part of the Admiralty Maritime or Merchant Laws, the Uniform Commercial Merchant Laws, says in it all through all jurisdictions. And so when you recognize where the law actually extends from, and that by nature extends from yourself and how you govern yourself, how you conduct yourself, what rules do you follow nature? Fair and equitable to your brother at all time in your actions. Actions speak louder than words. So yeah, you can rewrite that Declaration of Independence all you want. But I suggest that if you do so, you do use the words of the Lord's Prayer. That is your Declaration of Independence. That is your Constitution. That is your Law of Nations. That is your Uniform Commercial Code. In equity. It brings them all to realize that we are all created by a divine source, Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is the original form of what we determine today or discern today as God. It is not a thing. It is not a being. It's an omnipresent concept of being fair to your brothers and expecting the same in return. It is in fact an obligation. It is your own obligation to discern for yourself what reality is. Because if you leave it up to somebody else and they tell you what reality is and you go forth in life believing it, you're going to end up in the same situation I'm in. 4 years of not dealing with commerce, not signing anything, doing your research, trying to figure it out on your own because no one else will teach you. And this is the importance of my people shall perish for lack of knowledge. You know, we have to realize that everything that occurs in life affects us, and everything we do in life affects our surroundings. Yeah, killers of life do not understand our language. Our language, and I try to impress this upon people, we have a written word, we have a spoken word, and we have a verbalized word. We have a literal word which is written, we have a vocal word which is spoken, and we have a verbal word which is our actions. That's why it's verbal. Actions speak louder than words. And if we're going forth in going to the store and buying up all the toilet paper so nobody else can have any because we're in fear because somebody else told us to believe in this coronavirus and that it's going to kill us so quick that we need 3 months supply of toilet paper, think about what a store is. I mentioned this in last night's impromptu video. We're not supposed to have these commercial stores. That's inherently against nature. If we're going to have stores, we're supposed to store up enough for ourselves and in abundance so we can share it with others, not charge others for it. In hopes that if we come upon a downtime and we shared 5 items with our neighbor, that when we come upon that downtime, our neighbor will have learned from us how to keep his stores so that when we end up in that downtime, he can then give us 5 items back. It's a mutual exchange of fairness, pure equity in nature, freely given so that we can give freely. That's what the profits are about, not the quote profits from these stores. It's all inherently wrong. And granted, I've spent 4 years abstaining from the commercial system as much as I can, only using a doctrine of necessity. But that's what helped me learn where I'm at today. Because no one else is going to sit there and teach me as I struggle along in society like the rest of you folks with people. And again, comprehend. I know. I know you have people that are dependent upon you, so you can't well do the things that I do the way I've done them. Just hang them up and say no more. I realize you have to keep your children in the education system, but again, take from my own experience. I was involved in the public education system just as well as everybody else. One of the main differences, however, was my parents, along with the public education system, homeschooled me at home in all the things that they thought would help prepare me for my own age of majority. So that when I was an adult, I wouldn't have to depend upon the stores. I could go out in my own yard and do my own gardening. So much cheaper. I can propagate my own seeds from year to year and not have to worry about these modified seeds. I can keep growing my heritage seeds. Notice today, I remember when I was a kid eating an orange and having to spit the seeds out. Can you find an orange today with seeds? No, very unlikely. And if you do, it's modified and probably isn't going to grow. And that's perfect example of how these stores are inherently wrong. They are inherently against nature. When it comes to the information, Tom Cudney asked, where do we get this information? The only thing I can say is from experience. Because like I said about my last court case, when I went in there cussing and swearing and fingering them, calling them communists and everything, I didn't win. Technically, I got a win because by the time it was all said and done, like I said, that was a 6th offense possession. And in the previous 5 possessions, I had a public pretender, and I got the full penalties. Even though they all professed to fight diligently for me, I got the full penalties. However, this time when I told that public pretender that was assigned to the case that if he spoke one word, I would hold him liable, and he didn't say one word. So I got a win in that sense, and I was able to present my own case. And again, I didn't actually, quote, win that case. However, I did win. Because by the time it was all said and done, I ended up with 60 days, did 47, and walked out of jail without giving them any signature, even though they told me they couldn't release me unless I signed their release papers. Release. Sorry, I don't want to lease my personal services to you your corrupt organization anymore. When I am fully knowledgeable how to operate those leases in your jurisdictions without penalty, I will do so. Until then, you will be subject to my rules of conduct. And my rules of conduct is I do as I wish, and if I don't think it's fair and equitable, I ain't doing it. Okay, Tom expands on where do we find our God-given rights. Let me help. In the 9th and 10th Amendment of the Constitution, we talk about the separation of powers, and specifically in the 10th Amendment, it says the powers not delegated to the United States, or the powers delegated to the United States in the Constitution, but not prohibited to it or the states, are therefore delegated to the states or the people. Okay, and what they've done there is, with the 9th Amendment, you're supposed to comprehend that all those powers in the 10th Amendment get delegated to the states and the United States by us. We the people. Okay? That's one of our rights. Again, we are the ones that delegate any subjective powers. Subjective powers. Okay? In that, my rights to, slaughter a chicken and strip the meat off of certain bones and let those bones dry and then cast them to find out what my future is my right if I wish to do that. Now, you may not recognize that right, but that is my right. And you may not recognize that right because you don't participate in that kind of a right. And so when we talk about rights, we're talking about rights. R-I-T-E-S. See, the phonemes and the graphemes have all been morphemed. And when we come to rights, and when you talk about your God-given rights, we're talking about rituals. We're talking about what has become habits. So one guy might have different rights than the next guy. Your God-given rights are self-determined. You get to determine that. So long as you're not exercising those rights and harming another fellow man, that's your right. Period. And that's where we get into these modern laws where you're not supposed to burn trash. It makes sense. Don't be burning trash that harms your fellow man or the other creatures of life. If it's detrimental to life, that is your fellow man. That is what is of like kind. It's not just your brothers and sisters in the human form. It's other life. Period. I'm a smoker, but I dare not put my cigarette butts out and throw that filter on the ground. One of the most prolific articles of trash in the world. And it's toxic. Now, granted, people don't go around picking up cigarette butts and eating them. But squirrels and other rodents and birds that nest and use that stuff for nesting materials, it is toxic. So I don't dare do that because they have that right themselves out of natural habit of picking things up off the ground to use for nesting materials. That's their right. So when we think about these rights, we have to be conscious of it in the ritual sense and not in what's right and wrong. Yeah, Rasa Border Kananau, I hope I pronounced that right, speaks about a slow way to control the people, and it's a slow merging and changing of various systems and jurisdictions. That's what we're going through right now. It's a slow changing, and though at one point in time we're going to realize something overnight, but the slow change has been going on for a long time. We've heard about the RFID chip for a long time now, a couple, 2-3 years, although it has been in the process of establishment for years before that. See, our technology today is 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years behind because they've been studying it, trying to perfect it. In the meantime, everybody's forgetting how to perfect themselves. You are, in fact, created in perfection in His eyes. So long as you do things His way and be ever conscious, even when you're asleep. People don't comprehend that concept. You got to be conscious when you're asleep. And this is perfect spot to explain a mother's inherent instinct that even when their baby quits breathing in the middle of the night while they're sleeping, oftentimes they will wake up just to check and go over, and sure enough, okay, yeah, he's breathing. And so we got to think about this stuff. It's a slow change, and we have to recognize it for what it is, and that's why we have to pay attention to the past and be particularly acutely aware of the things that can come out of it in the future. We like I said, the environment around us affects us, and we affect it. We verbalize ourselves. And that's that positive or negative energy that we give off. Like I said, I don't dare throw down a cigarette butt. Particularly if I'm out hiking in the woods, I'm not going to sit there and squeeze my cherry out without making sure it's out first. Smokey the Bear, you're the only one that can prevent forest fires. You're the only one that can prevent detriment upon your fellow man according to your own actions. We spoke about this yesterday in a post. Somebody mentioned about going into the jury and being a member of the jury to advocate for correcting the system on the jury side. And it's going to be kind of difficult to do that because what you've done when you sign up for jury duty is you signed a contract and you have to abide by their jurisdiction. So when they tell you to shut up, you better shut up. You ain't got no right. If you really want to help your fellow man and stand up for your fellow man, sit in that galley behind the bar and have the kahunas to stand up and say, excuse me, that's a violation of international treaty, or excuse me, that's a violation of this, a violation of that, and as one of the people, I myself will hold you accountable for an offense against one of my brethren. Period. Aren't your laws constructed upon the biblical teachings to be fair, equal, and impartial? And I think that's our best way of protecting each other is by having that foresight from a third person perspective. So if you're going to get immediately involved with these juries by being on the jury trial, remember you're subjecting yourself to that same jurisdiction. And if you try to speak up in that jury panel while that man's on trial, you're going to end up on trial yourself. Period. So anyway, let me see here, see if there's any other comments. Anybody else? And that's why it's important to do your research, people. Not so much so just for yourself, so that you can learn yourself. But like I said before, we're supposed to go forth in prosperity and abundance, and that means the example I've been using lately is when I go forward and I try to teach this stuff, I need to learn as well. That's why I ask for your input, because even though I might have an open mind, there are things that I may not be thinking about, and I need that input. So when I'm going forth and I'm teaching you, you're supposed to come forth and help teach me as well. It's a give and take. It's an equality. It's a back and forth. It's an up and down. It's a balance. It's a cycle. It comes full circle. Our numbering system, 1 through 10, is bullshit. It's 1 through 9. And when we come to the whole of it, then it's got complete closure. When we come to the full comprehension of the number system, it comes to complete closure. The secret of numbers doesn't include a zero. It includes the numbers 3, 6, and 9 with the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8. And this has to do with frequencies and how they work. If you ever watched an oscilloscope in an electronics class or something, you can get a pattern where it goes across the screen like this, and then another one will go across the screen in the opposite. And that's your numbers. That's the balance, the cyclical balance of numbers. Same thing with the cycle. Everybody thinks the cycle is a full circle like this, whereas you look at it like this, it's ever moving forward. This is the concept of the Fibonacci curve. It can grow and expand, or expand and descend, and expand and descend, ascend and descend, up and down, in and out, front and back. So think about this stuff. And no, I do not mean 0 through 9. I mean 1 through 9. I'll pull up a video and send it to you, David. We're talking about the frequencies and how they work. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8. 1, 2, 4, 8, the first part of the frequencies, and then you got 7 and 5. And then you got 3 and 6. 3 and 6 is your base. You see people doing yoga. 3, 6, 3, 6, 3, 6. They're getting that balance. And they're centering it with the 9. The same concept with your eyes. You're taking in things with the 3 and the 6. And you're contemplating them with the 9. So think about this stuff, people. And I hope you got something out of this. It's important that we come together and realize that all this corruption is just idiocy. When we learn the facts about it, it's like the coronavirus. I posted on that. The figures that they're putting out there and trying to say, it's a pandemic. It's one of the weakest viruses that's ever been known. One of the weakest viruses mankind has ever known. And it was man-made. What's that tell you about the power of man? When they're trying to distract you from reality. So, again, thanks for joining me today. If anybody's interested in passing some considerations on, I'll go ahead and edit this post and include my PayPal link if you want to come back and review it. In the meantime, like I said, I've got to go do some research on the Bork engine and birth certificates for tonight's Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. Central. If you want to join me, keep an eye on my page. I'll be posting a comment about that today. I don't post the Zoom meeting links on my page. I've got a Zoom group in Messenger for that. So if you want to join tonight's Zoom, let me know and I'll include you in that Messenger group. That's where all my Zoom links are posted, as well as my recordings. Anybody that wants any past recordings or anything. Again, I'm putting this stuff out, and I hope that you would give consideration in return. Coming forth with 5 lessons and giving me 5 lessons. So in any kind of consideration, hit that PayPal button for me. And regardless whether you do that or not, I'm going to keep doing this. Why? Because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing it to begin with. So, God bless you. Love you. Have a great day.